Hey everybody, Scott Monday here, and I'm with my friend CJ Bruce, who is a marketing genius. CJ, is it okay if I call you a genius?
I'll take it.
CJ is kind enough to chat with me specifically about my business to consumer business, Kitchen and Bath Crate, but talking specifically today about AI and marketing, which is this confluence of two super important and contemporary things that we need to understand. So CJ, thanks for chatting with me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let's set the table a little bit. CJ, tell us a little bit about your agency and how you got into the business that you're in. And then we're going to dive deeply into AI and marketing. But how did you get to where you are?
So I started my agency, The Missing Ingredients. It'll be 10 years in January.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's been a journey. So we primarily focus on food and beverage brands and providing digital marketing services with a focus on paid media and influencer relations. I got into digital marketing around 2007, 2008, with a heavy focus on the video side. I was interested in video production, and I was also a nerd, and those things merged into marketing. And so I've been heavily in the digital marketing world for the last almost 20 years. Yeah, and that brings us to where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, CJ, when would you say the professional application of AI really started to perk your interest? When did you start hearing about it as more than just like this Terminator era Skylink or whatever it was called? When did you hear about it starting to actually impact the way you do work, your customers, your industry?
I would put it into two phases. There's been a behind the scenes phase that started much earlier, and then a in front of everybody's face with the launch of ChatGPT. So on the behind the scenes side, that really started on the ad buying. So for media buying, we're buying ads heavily on Meta and Google, but also other channels. And so Meta and Google have for years been investing in behind the scenes, machine learning, AI driven ad buying. And so that's been on our minds for a long time. And one example of how that comes to life is we've reframed our ad targeting in thinking about creative as targeting. So what that means is instead of you going in and saying, I want to target these 18 to 35-year-old people in this city that are interested in kitchen and bath, instead, you're producing content that would appeal to that audience, keeping your targeting more broad, and Meta's algorithm and AI is finding the right people based on how they interact with that content. So that's an example on the behind the scenes side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Which number one allows you to hit your target audience, even if they don't necessarily match your demographic audience. But number two, we all know that mid-teens, our ability to target demographically, psychographically, economically, changed with Cambridge Analytics, if I'm remembering right.
Analytica. Yeah.
Analytica. Yeah. So that really changed what you and I could do on social media marketing.
Exactly. So yeah, between that and then I think it was iOS 14 with Apple's privacy, that those started to block some of the tracking and Meta's workaround within their algorithm. Obviously, it's core to their business. So they've come up with some creative workarounds there. That's an example where behind the scenes, that's been on our mind. And how do we essentially feed the algorithm in ways that make sense? And those algorithms more and more being driven by AI, by the major tech companies. And then on the other side, in terms of us actively using it, it was really the launch of ChatGPT that all of a sudden it was totally accessible to anyone. And then we started right away testing, playing, utilizing it, talking to our clients about it, and figuring out where are the edges, right? What can we actually use? What can't we use? When you first go in and type something, it's, oh my gosh, this is magic. This can do anything, right? But then the more you dig in, you realize, okay, it's not perfectly right. It seems confident and correct, but how do we basically pivot this is a cool tool to what are the real business use cases that drive business outcomes? And how do we take advantage of that?
Let's talk about the past and the now first, and then I want to dive a little bit into what you foresee as the future of marketing and AI. But what would you say, CJ, are the things that you do differently or approach differently in 2025 than you did, let's say, 4 years ago from a marketing perspective because of AI?
There is a lot. So one is the speed and breadth of ideation and brainstorming. So being able to quickly come up with new ideas, different directions, explore, again, different use cases or different audiences like we just talked about, that used to take significantly more time. And we still have our creative team is still leading the charge of what are we going to be doing, but being able to stress test or just get something on the board the speed to draft is something I think about a lot, right? Starting with a blank page and coming up with something now is very fast. So I think that's a big thing that's shifted.
What would you say are things that you're doing differently in 2025 than you were doing 4 or 5 years ago, even from a more of a execution perspective?
Yeah. So the ideation brainstorming piece, I think the other piece is rethinking workflows. So now thinking about AI as a contributor to a workflow, using copy as a simple example. I think everybody, has copy needs where we brief the copywriter writes something, someone QAs it, gives feedback, they edit it. It's how do we inject AI into that process to make it better, make it faster, make it more creative. And so we've systematically been going through the different things that we execute to inject AI. And so copywriting as an example, a brief can go to AI first to draft something and then go to a copywriter to start with a framework and be able to edit and iterate from there. Another piece I want to highlight on this is it starts to open up what's possible, because especially on more limited budgets, right? Where something like you can get into conversations around vibe coding, like building custom apps or custom websites, or even levels of personalization and communication that were accessible to large brands with really large budgets, that now all of a sudden it's more and more accessible to smaller businesses with smaller budgets because of AI. So examples could be if you have an email list, segmenting that list and personalizing the message to multiple groups. Again, previously a copywriter taking all of the time to go through and do all of that you can do that very quickly with AI. And so that started to get the gears turning on. What else can we do now that the cost of producing these things or cost of ideating or personalizing or versioning has come way down? And that's something that we're implementing and we're continually thinking about as these tools keep changing.
What have you seen thus far when it comes to the use of agents, the use of AI to actually get stuff done? Because my experience has been we're still in the first inning on that. And I liken it to e-commerce delivery, where it's very easy to get that package to within a mile of your home or even your doorstep. It's that last mile or that last increment that gets it to your front steps that obviously so much of the logistics world is trying to figure out. That's really the hemp on automating deliveries. Are you seeing a similar thing when it comes to AI and marketing, and that it takes a human to get it to that last level? Or are you actually having good luck with automating an entire system?
So this is a hot topic. Our perspective as an agency is that you do require the human in the loop. There's no question about it. I think the AI companies pitch it as it's agents everywhere and they can do all the things for you. And we've tested that and it's just not there yet. And part of the reason is it requires certain levels of context and all of these things that like humans are good at, right? You can keep a lot more context in your mind than an AI can. And also the nuance about different relationships and who's good at what, all these things that it's hard to prompt to an AI. So the way we think about it is humans at the ends and AI in the middle. And so a human at the top, that's defining what are our goals, what are we trying to achieve, what's the client brief, what are the best practices, AI handling middle steps, and then a human reviewing and putting the final touches, tweaking that before it gets shipped out. So there's nothing today where there's some triggering event and then AI is publishing something that's going to go to consumers or to a client or anything like that. Having said that, I also think there is a positive middle ground there where it doesn't mean that agents are worthless or it's not worth building these things, right? Like if you look at a whole workflow, you can take segments of that workflow and they can be owned by AI. It's just not the entire thing. And so we're doing it piece by piece with the idea that eventually, as these things continue to evolve and get better, it'll take over more and more of that process.
Have you been getting any pushback from customers the last few years in terms of, AI should make your job easier, CJ, so pricing should come down? Or have you seen people bringing marketing in-house more often because of the use of these tools? Or is that just more of a news headline than an actuality in your industry?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a mixed bag. I think part of it is, so to take the first question, most of our clients, we're usually leading the conversation. So this is what we're doing. We're bringing AI in and it's allowing us to do more for you. And that's usually how we're framing it up. So we could deliver more, or we have efficiencies and we can have that conversation. I think there's also another category where there maybe we're thinking about it, or if there's a smaller business that has somebody in marketing that now that person could do a lot more because of AI. And so it's evolving what our role is. And I think we're in a bit of the messy middle of this transition. So I see it as, it's making us more efficient today, making our clients more efficient, allowing us to do more. And it takes some time for us to figure out, okay, how do we then package our services reflecting the new reality? And then also, what is the role of an agency in the future? And I think as we think about that last part, if you go to AI and your kitchen and bath guy, you ask them about something kitchen and bath related, you're going to know that's not quite right. I wouldn't do that. That doesn't seem safe, whatever. And it's the same thing with marketing. When I go in and I'm chatting with GPT or any other AI, there are things that will come out that I would recommend for other reasons. And so there's still a strategic role, right? And a need for people who have experience in marketing to be getting the most out of these tools. And so there's value in that. How do you position that? How do we price that and market that value to our clients? I think we're still figuring that out. And then the last piece I'd say on this is just, you're talking about the agent piece. There's a lot of hype, right? So a lot of clients will come to us and be like, AI can do all of these things. And we're like, can it really do those things? Let's dig into it and see where are those opportunities. And in some cases, conflating automation and AI. So automation has been around for a long time, and automation can be better. It can do more things with AI. But a lot of the conversations we have is, oh, I heard AI can do all these things. And it's really a matter of setting up automation. So there's some education pieces to it and navigating through this rapidly changing fields together. And it really is impacting, I think, all areas of business.
What are some of your favorite tools that you've been using lately, CJ? And it doesn't have to be restricted to marketing. Anything that's become I can't live without this thing in your world?
Aside from GPT, Claude, Gemini, they're all a daily basis. There's some different nuances and use cases there. Another tool that I love is Gamma for presentations. It's 100% replaced. A few months ago, it was agency-wide. It's like we're using Gamma instead of Google Slides or PowerPoint. Fully in love with Gamma. I should be getting paid by Gamma, how much I talk about Gamma. And then the other one that I feel like is a little bit of a sleeper is Notebook LM, which is the Google tool kind of positioned around studying. But where we use it is, we do a lot of, especially for our larger clients, market research. So you get these huge market research reports, and being able to plug that into Notebook LM, and you can have a chat with it about the research report, so it can handle more context. And then the other thing that I really love about it, and one of those things that feels like AI magic, is being able to create a podcast out of content. So I can upload a dozen research reports about shopping habits of different generations, for example. Here's our marketing strategy, here's our media plan, and then take all of that and give me a podcast about how do these generational shopping habits get integrated into our marketing plan for this client. Right. And then I can listen to that 20-minute podcast and kind of synthesize that information very quickly. So I love that.
I agree on the Notebook LM. My daughter is a senior in high school, and so she's applied to her 3,000 schools she's applied to. But anyway, there's 5 that are on her at the top of her list. And so she and I spent some time researching each of those 5 in terms of financial aid and all these sort of complex nuances. Here's her transcripts, here's her test scores, what are her odds of getting in if she gets in, what type of financial packages historically have they offered. And we dumped all of that into Notebook LM, and it produced a 20-minute podcast. And it was just so cool to listen to it, because it's such a human way to consume vast knowledge as opposed to reading it, right? You're just sitting there, and these 2 hosts are having a conversation about my daughter's nuanced college application process. It's just wild. So I'm right there with you. It's a great way to distill a massive amount of information into something that's very digestible.
Yeah. I'll share one more just personal side. You mentioned your daughter. So I have little kids, and they love to color. And so it was daily for a while. It's gone back and forth, but creating coloring pages for the kids using either Gemini or GPT, and could just describe what you want. And then here it is, and I'll print it out. And now you're actually going and coloring something.
So cool.
So it's a very fun activity on that side.
Yeah. And that kind of brings up an interesting point, and I'm sure there's human psychology to it, but I've talked to a lot of people that use a lot of these tools, especially the LLM, professionally all the time. And then I'll suggest it for personal use, and it'll be like, oh, I never thought of that. And I'm like, man, that's sometimes where the real gold is, right? Trip planning or anything related to personal budget or all these different things. Like once you take off those blinders, the divide between the professional and the personal, these are some pretty significant tools, even personally.
One of my wife's favorite pastimes is like taking pictures of rooms in our house and remodeling them with AI, right? Upload it, give it some notes. Like, what if we added a window here? Or what if we changed this? And then it's produces something that's close enough where you can imagine what it would look like. But it's, again, just a fun thing and also helps creatively, and completely agree on those lines. There being no line. Like I use it personally and professionally on a daily basis.
Yeah. And disclaimer, by no means were you implying that one day designers and contractors would not be needed. Just kidding.
It doesn't have the, again, this is one that you would look at and be like, that won't work. Your wall will fall down.
A guy I follow on Twitter, a business owner, large business owner, but he's remodeling his attic. He hired ChatGPT as a general contractor. And so he's posting about what that's like. And he's just raving about how successful it's been, and not really mentioning that he runs a portfolio of home improvement agencies. So he's not exactly a rookie when it comes to home improvement, but it's working for him. So there you go. Talk to me a little bit about, I have two other sort of chunks I want to cover, specifically for marketing. Give me the CJ Bruce 5 years from now. What's going to be different in the world of marketing? What's probably not going to be different? What's your crystal ball say?
My crystal ball says 5 years is too far out to predict. I think it's at the speed of change. I think a few things I think we touched on a little bit earlier, like the strategic piece, I don't think goes away. I think you still need someone with that experience and like the strategic understanding of what's possible, what the business outcomes are, historical understanding, especially when it gets like really specific areas that you work in. I don't think that's going away. I don't think the creative piece is going to go away. I think it's going to change a lot. I think similar to what I was saying earlier, where new possibilities open up. So now, again, you could produce what looks like a large ad agency TV spot with visual effects and all of that using AI. However, someone needs to actually do that. So and I equate this to, like I mentioned earlier, the beginning of my career was really an online video. And I studied film in college, and I moved to LA and worked in the film industry for a little bit. And there was the whole transition to digital video from film. And I think there's a similar thing going on from the creative side, where when that transition happened, it just totally lowered the barrier to entry, where, okay, now anybody can shoot something with digital video. And today it's even more, right? Anybody can shoot something on their phone. All of these creators opens all of these creative possibilities. And then AI is now taking that to yet another level. And so you mentioned following people on Twitter. There's some other creatives that I follow and seeing the content that they're producing with AI, but it's not something where people tend to think about it as, okay, you're going to go in and say, make me a great commercial. And that's not what they're doing, right? It's like they're prompting individual scenes. They're still storyboarding. They're still trying to figure out what the story is. They're using AI to make these pieces. They have a human editor that is putting the pieces together, polishing it, but it dramatically drops the cost. It's like that maybe used to be $1 million to produce this. Now it's like you can do it all for 10 grand. And so that just explodes the creative possibilities. I think another thing that's top of mind is AI backlash. So there are a lot of people that are anti-AI, right? There's kind of people who don't want AI, or it's taking jobs, or they don't understand it, or whatever it is. So being mindful of that, I think both as a B2C business, right, how consumers are thinking about that, potentially B2, right, how it's affecting other people's lives and businesses is something just to be mindful of and aware of. And then in social media, I don't know how the social platforms are going to handle the onslaught of AI content. I could see it just flooding these channels, and then it becomes something totally different, right? If you go into your Instagram feed and it's all AI generated reels, it's a very different thing than you're seeing creative things produced by people or their authentic stories. How do you separate those things out? It starts to get very muddied, and generally people wondering what is real or not real. And I think that could have a big effect as far as communication channels go, building trust with customers. So that's something that I think is going to be really impacted. And then I think on the positive side is, again, opening up possibilities. We talked about creative. I think also on the technical side, the vibe coding component, where you can create an app, a website, literally from an idea without having coding knowledge. But that opens up these possibilities where, give examples, large brands will do these micro sites where you could go and you could play a game that's Coca-Cola's Christmas game or whatever it is. And they can spend 100 grand, $250,000 to make something like that just as a marketing stunt or campaign. When it's 10% of the cost to do something like that, it opens up the possibility where, oh, now you could create something like that, like an interactive game or interactive website that's just like a one-off thing for significantly less cost. And so it opens up a whole new category of marketing. Yeah, those are a few things that come to my mind.
What I hear you saying, though, is you're still pretty bullish on the human race needing to be involved with things.
I also think we'll see more push to, like in real life, IRL, to use the internet slang, more of that, right? People are going to want to have in-person events and I can like see, touch, feel this is real. I think there's going to be more of that. We do a lot of influencer work. Obviously, a lot of that is online, like in-person influencer events that are brand sponsored, right? Bringing people to a space, hosting parties, like opportunities for people to truly engage on the human level. So I would say bullish on that kind of events, in-person, experiential side of marketing as well.
Back to this concept of the X's and O's of marketing, running a business, caring for customers, those aren't going to change because of AI, but AI might make some of those things easier to do and or help you and I to scale our businesses more quickly and maybe with a few less humans than we otherwise would have. We just finished up an event for our past customers, and the event was in person and it was great. There was a lot of like warmth in the room because humans are connecting. But if I thought through everything leading up to the event that we used AI to help produce in terms of the landing page for the event and help us brainstorm concepts and all sorts of things we used along the way, it just made producing the event so much easier. But once again, that human connection thing didn't change. The road to that event was just a little bit easier and shorter.
And I would imagine there are probably things that you did in the events because of AI that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And that's something I think we talk about a lot. It's not just making the business more efficient. It also, I truly believe, like making the work better. Like we're delivering better work, in some cases within the same budgets. So we can just deliver more and higher quality. It's not just AI slop, as people would say, you're just like pushing garbage out there. But it is because of that human element being a part of the process.
Yeah, it's a force multiplier for sure.
Yeah.
Let's take off the marketing hat, if you wish, and just put on the business owner operator hat. How do you see AI impacting you as a business owner and a leader in the years to come?
I think there are a few things that come to my mind. Like one is refactoring the business for AI, right? You have a business, you have existing processes. So integrating AI into those processes, figuring out where that makes sense and where it doesn't, needing to be at the forefront. I think especially for our business, I think probably true for a lot of businesses, but especially in a digital first kind of business where we need to be on the forefront. And so encouraging that I'm there, but encouraging the team, training for the team, giving them tools, giving them budget to be able to play with things and test things and be on the forefront there, I think is super important. And having a growth mindset and also a curiosity mindset and being able to ask great questions and think critically. I think those are all kind of key pieces that, again, I developed and developing, and also want to encourage the team to give them that ability. And then I think, just like I was saying, as far as marketing goes, within the business too, there are other things, more things become possible. So like for us specifically, like even in the last year, we've been able to roll out new systems, tools, software that we just previously was not possible, right? It was like, oh yeah, someday maybe we do that. So a lot of the someday things have become, oh, we can actually do this now. And so those are coming in. We can do more things. Another piece that I think about a lot is the need for software and actual developers. I think is going to be something that probably every business should think about, having a software developer on staff, like to be able to take advantage of these things and build those custom tools for yourself is a huge advantage. And it's something that, so we did that this year. Okay, we have somebody full-time that's just focused on building these things out and improving them and scaling them and testing our internal workflows where we've integrated AI. And that's an interesting one because it's both, they are using AI to help write the code, right, and be able to do that faster. And also the costs of deployment and all of that have gone down. So I just see that as an expanding need. People worry about software developers going out of work. I don't think that's going to happen. The way you're getting paid might go down because there's going to be, I think, a lot more need. But as a business owner, I think a lot about that. Okay, every business needs to be in some way a tech business. And how do you implement these things into your business and just start to learn that and build that muscle and think in that way, because it is more possible than it's ever been. And then to touch on the headcount thing, it is a case where things are going to be more efficient. Like I think there's going to be less people needed to do the same amount of work or better. And that's something to consider and work through. And I think especially thinking about a challenge there in developing talent. And I don't have the answer to that, but I think you think about when I was starting, I'm working with other people who have been in the agency world for a long time. And yeah, even though there's new tools coming out and changing, right, there are approaches, there's ways of working with people, client relationships, right, all these kind of things that you just learn through experience. And as AI takes on more and more of the kind of mundane, which a lot of that was like entry level work, how does that work? How do you build talent and grow talent in that environment? And I think it's an interesting challenge to think about.
You brought up a good point about software and how we handle those issues and what's possible. I know that we're on a Salesforce platform and have been for 15 years, and we've often thought about changing to a different CRM, but couldn't find anything that quite checked the boxes. And we just had this discussion not long ago, the old CRM discussion yet again. And I think we're on the cusp of perhaps there being some tools out there that will allow us to build our own that is more effective, obviously more custom to our business, and not nearly as pricey, right? We pay $17,000 a year for Salesforce, and it's just not rendering that amount of value for us in the way that we operate. And I think bringing some things in-house, replacing these large software bills with stuff that's more custom developed, I think it's really going to change the software world in the next 5 years on how you buy it, what you're willing to pay for it. I know OpenAI made an announcement recently about their own internal CRM that they had built and how it's so easy to customize and all that. And there was an immediate drop in Salesforce's stock price, because I'm sure that's the last thing they want to hear, is that you can now potentially build it on your own. Now, I think we're a number of years out from doing that, perhaps, at least a guy like me, a contractor, being able to do it, right? But it's interesting how that's going to go.
So we use Notion as another tool we use every day. And so in Notion, it's grounded in databases. And so we were using HubSpot, and now we've been building our own CRM in Notion. That's basically significantly stripped back, right? We don't have a large sales team. It's not high volume customers. Like, we just don't need all the stuff. And so being able to take a tool like Notion or like Airtable would be another tool, right, where you have the kind of core database that you can build your own custom software on top of it, or even some of the vibe coding things. But I think you need that core database component. Allows you to build tools that are tailored to you. I think another thing is we've built in workflows, and this is on the back end, is using N8N for automations. And so it essentially is letting me and my team build our own custom features for little things that probably wouldn't apply to anybody else. But I want to be able to generate like preview images, thumbnail images for creative that we have. It's hosted in Google Drive. I want to be able to display it in Notion easily, automatically. And so we built our own workflow that does that. So now it's like, okay, I can put it in and easily get a visual of all of the creative that we produced, even though it's hosted somewhere else. So, and there are multiple examples of that where we have a need, it's an idea, and now we can build it through AI helping with the code, automation tools like N8N or Zapier that then lets us build it out and connect it into the tools that we already use. And I just think there's this whole, the SaaS world, I think it's just going to change a lot. And like you said, undercutting the value of these really expensive, bloated, frankly, platforms. They're trying to appeal to really large groups of customers. We can have something much more narrow, and now it makes sense from a business standpoint because of AI.
Yeah, I was having lunch yesterday with someone that just started a business, young guy, probably late 20s. I was asking him like, hey, what have you used AI for? And how would your experience have been different 5 years ago? And he just cited so many examples of a way that he's been able to grow this business that he otherwise wouldn't have been. And I think it's going to open up some opportunities for entrepreneurship too, that the little guy will be able to compete with the bigger guy earlier and more often, I think, in the next 5 years. Agree or disagree?
Fully agree. And I think even if you just take that example of the size of the market, right? It changes. If you think of a total addressable market for a new business and you do that, and then you're also thinking about what does it cost to get in there? What's the potential return and all of that? And AI just changes the calculation. It's, yeah, you could be a solo and you build a CRM that's just for home services, right? And as an example, maybe you can even go more narrow than that. And it's enough, the cost for you to build it coming down, have come down, will continue to come down. And then what you would need that business to make sense if you are thinking about keeping it smaller, it's like more of a lifestyle business or however you want to structure it, I think totally changes the calculation there. And then I think about that piece for entrepreneurs, right, impacting the larger businesses, like you said, right? It's the death by 1,000 cuts. So if there's all of these specific tools that are taking away little segments of your market because it's more tailored to them, then that your market starts to shrink. And then it's who is that large, expensive product actually for? I'm a glass half full guy, so I'm always going to think it's positive and there's opportunities everywhere. And yeah, if I was in a different stage of life and starting out, I would be super deep in just building out, okay, what can I build using these tools solo, and how could that be its own business? Because I think the opportunities are endless.
Remind me, CJ, how old your kids are?
4 and 1.
Any thoughts on parenting in AI? Any thoughts on how you are going to approach this?
What I have thought about is I've always been into technology and a nerd, and ever since I was a kid. And so I think it's finding a balance in making sure that they get exposure and know how to use the tools, understand how to think critically also, right? Not just take whatever it comes back with as the truth. How to ask great questions is also a thing I think about. It's like a core life skill that only gets amplified with AI, making sure that they have exposure and are learning on their own and learning through experience, while also knowing how to use the tools and how to get the most out of the tools. And trying to check myself as a parent and not think about, oh, what was it like when I grew up and how did I come up and what tools did I have? It's a different world for them. My job didn't exist when I was born. So like, I think about that too. It's like whatever they're going to do is probably going to be something that doesn't exist today. So how do you prepare them for that? And I think the critical thinking, asking great questions, and being able to interact with people, I think is another big thing where, again, no matter how far AI goes, people are still going to want some level of human connection that's just built into our nature. And so being good with people, being empathetic, being able to read people, all of those things I think of as core skills. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see as they get older and they're interacting with tools more. But I will be encouraging them to, you've got an idea? Okay, let's go build this. And here's how you can build it and play with this. And I think there'll be a positive feedback loop there where they'll figure it out and be way beyond whatever I'm doing.
I can't even wrap my mind around the world that they're going to be living in.
What about you? I'm curious. Your kids are older. Like, have you had conversations around AI? Are they actively using AI? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, I feel like they're in the same spot that I was. I was right on that cusp of cell phone and the World Wide Web really becoming prevalent to the masses. And so I lived in the pre-internet cell phone world and grew up in it. And then as a young adult, I was in that world and had to learn to use it quickly, right? So one foot in each of those worlds. And I think for my kids, they grew up in a pre-AI world, and now they're becoming older teens and young adults in an AI world. And so I think they will have one foot in each of those worlds. And I do believe AI is as much, if not more, of a line in the sand than the World Wide Web was and cell phones were. I think it's right up there with those. And then maybe a close fourth of like electricity or something. I don't know. But so anyway, I guess my very long answer to your question is we've tried to parent, like you said, focusing on those core human elements, because that's all we can do as parents. We don't know what tools are going to be out there. We don't know what influences are going to be out there. We don't know what's coming down the line. But if you're a good human, if you can communicate well with your fellow human, if you can think on your own, if you have a high level of personal responsibility, if you have those core things as a person, you're probably going to do pretty well. So that's really what we try to focus on. And of course, we talk about the tools or the social situations or the other things going on in this world, but really it comes back to those core elements of just be a good person. And here's what that looks like. And here's why you need to strive for that. And really the rest of the chips are going to fall where they will.
Yeah, I like that.
CJ, where can people find you? How can people that hear this and want to learn more about what you do find out about you and learn about you?
I think LinkedIn is where I'm most active. I ebbs and flows there. I'm not posting on a daily basis or anything like that, but LinkedIn, happy to connect and chat more about this stuff and nerd out on it too. Like I said, it's top of mind for me, and we're, in addition to the core work, and I mentioned this earlier, but as part of like our service evolution, thinking about how do we help businesses with AI implementation, specifically within the marketing and a little bit sales with some crossover there. But how do we understand where there's opportunities here and help teams learn and grow within AI implementation? The core business, the missing ingredient, or focus on food and beverage brands. So mainly CPG, food and beverage. So anything that you could buy at a grocery store or on Amazon, Instacart to eat or drink. Those are the core types of companies that we work with.
Awesome. And that URL, themissingingredient.com?
Themissingingredient.com.
Good for you. Way to lock that URL down.
That was an investment.
Cool. CJ, thanks for your time. I always appreciate chatting with you face to face. I appreciate you letting me bring that into this type of setting, and appreciate you, and best of luck as we both move forward in this crazy AI world.
Sounds great. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the time.
Awesome. Have a good day.